There was not one set of Negroes that I could point at and say, well, these particular Negroes over here, they didn't suffer from the psychological trauma of slavery, so we don't have to deal with that. I found out that all of us had the same problems, and that we were not as different as we think we are. We are all doing the same things. We're all practicing the same patterns of behavior. A pattern is something that people follow because they think it's the right way to go. We have been doing it and approving that behavior between each other because we think, well, this is just how you do it. We have not represented our own ideas. We have not had anyone to represent our own ideas to us. The only place we have learned about how to be a woman or how a man is to be a man is on television. We haven't had that kind of a chance to study ourselves. The white woman has been the only woman we have had an opportunity to study every day of our life, on television, in every magazine we ever picked up, in every newspaper, on every radio. She's been the only model we have had. And if we think that that's not important, then we need to, look at that again. We have studied that, and we have made up and came up with requirements that the white people have set for us for our man. And if he cannot come up to those requirements, then we have decided that he is impotent and unable to be our man because he's disqualified, because he does not qualify by the standards that the white people have set up. We think a good, successful relationship is one where everything goes our way. The first time it stops going our way, then we got a serious problem. We want our man to do everything we tell him to do, but we don't want to do anything he tells us to do. Yeah, it's hard language. And all of our so-called educated class together have never come up with an agenda that brought the people together to try to improve their condition like the Black Man's Guide. Not a one of them have ever had a program that got all of the black people talking, got all of them out. Made everybody decide to make a comment whether they wanted to or not. People are compelled to testify all over the country. I can't walk the street. See, we've never been examined, as I said, in the breakdown of every relationship. Each party in the relationship shares 1/2 the responsibility. That's 50% of the responsibility. So yes, the black man is 50% responsible for the breakdown of our relationships. And we are the other 50% half responsible for the breakdown of our relationships. And I ask black women, if you do not want to accept 50% of the responsibility, what percentage do you accept, and how does that behavior manifest? And I guarantee you it's already in my book, because this lists the things that we do.
Good afternoon, Africans from the motherland. I hope you're doing fine where you are, and if you're not doing fine, please do fine where you are. So today I want us to talk about internalized racism, the psychological effects of racism, and all this topic we are going to use a case study that was represented by the famous Black American writer Shahrazad Ali. Shahrazad Ali is known in the Black American community as a woman who pioneers for the voices of black people to be heard in the United States of America and all around the world where we can find black people. So Shahrazad Ali even wrote a book that is called Are You Still a Slave? The title of this book is very, very ironical, and the title of this book is just true as it is. Because the questions she states in her book, that are you still a slave, is a question that I still feel every black person is still facing, and every black person should give an answer to this question, are you still a slave? Now, according to Shahrazad Ali, slavery did not end. According to her, she says that slavery is still continuing in modern days and modern times. She says that even in the urban areas, in the urban cities of the United States of America, slavery still represents itself. Slavery has taken different formats. It has taken colorism format, it has taken classism format, it has taken what we call racism, the normal one, and conformism where people want to conform with the white supremacist structures that have been implemented by the white supremacists. Now, here is a line that I want you to note. that the liberation of black Americans, though legally achieved through the abolition of slavery, was never fully realized. You understand? On a psychological or emotional level. Ali believes that many black Americans, especially those in urban centers, continue to live as though they are mentally enslaved. They are perpetuating behavior and attitudes that reflect internalized racism. We've seen many times how much our parents, those people who live in the United States of America, say that their parents are always showing internalized racism, and it's not for their likeness, it's for the likeness of those people who made them feel like that. We cannot blame them. We can only blame the white supremacist structure. Now, I want us to dive into this video, and Dr. Shahrazad Ali is going to really explain and expound on this idea of, are you still a slave? Because I really think these are very important question that every black person should have an answer to, or rather an interpretation of it.
I teach that slavery tampered with nature. When I say that slavery tampered with nature, I mean that a major rite of passage for every male mammal is to provide and protect for a female and her young. Now, certainly we know that the black man has been denied that opportunity. He has not been allowed to qualify to protect his woman or provide for them. They have told us that the only provision that the black man is qualified to give us is one of money. And we have made finance the major focus of our relationships with them. We have made the one thing that most of them don't even have be the criteria. We have been taught that if they do not give us money, that we are not to even allow them to be a father to their child. We have been taught that if he does not give us money, then he is not qualified to tell us what to do. We have been taught that if he does not give us money, that he doesn't have any rights in the home. It's whoever is making the money who has the rights. That's not our system. The black man provides more in a black home than just financial support. He provides direction, guidance, gratification, fulfillment, and discipline for our children. Those are the principles that are missing in our home today, which is why our children are savage in the streets. We see those children out there sometimes acting wild and uncivilized and disrespectful because they don't respect anyone, because we didn't teach them any respect. We didn't know how. And a lot of times we look at them and we say, yeah, they're out there doing this, and we act like that they dropped down out of the sky. But those are our children. We birthed them up out of our womb. They belong to us. And we are responsible for them. And for every child that's out there out of control, disrespectful, ignorant, and uneducated, they have a black mother somewhere who failed to do her job, and a black father who failed to do his. It is not the responsibility of the American government to raise our children. It is not the responsibility of the American government to support our women. And it certainly is not the responsibility of the American government to hold our man down. This book is to allow us to have a new chance to start all over and say, yes, this is what has happened. I didn't make myself like this. We don't get anything from ourselves. We pick it all up externally. And as we have picked up these bad habits, we can, decide that we are not going to do them. See, what has happened is that we have been turned, sisters, into kind of like Frankenstein. I think everybody remembers the Frankenstein monster. He had somebody's arms, somebody's legs. He even had somebody else's brain inside of his skull. Oh, he was functional, but he was not himself. And so, yes, we are functional. We have been taught that having a good job means that we are a total success. We have been taught that the solution to all the problems of the black people in America is to get a job with the white people. That's just not the truth. And that's certainly not saying that it is not important for us to have money for food, clothing, and shelter. And it's not saying that we as black women are not strong. I'm here today to represent some of that monumental strength we say we have. This does not mean that we are not strong. We don't have to put our man down in order to be strong. I'm just saying that we have used our strength in the wrong direction. We've been using it against our man instead of for him. If we use the kind of strength and influence that we have in this society to support the black man, won't anybody be able to come against him? But every man is judged by his woman, and if his woman say he ain't nothing, then the whole world believes he ain't nothing. The actual fact is every man himself judge his own self by his woman. He can be out in the world being great, and the whole world can be kneeling to him, and if he come home and she say you ain't nothing, you ain't been nothing, then that's who he believes. And yes, we have insulted our man in front of our children. It wasn't intentional. We just been frustrated. We couldn't make you brothers do what we want you to do. We didn't have anybody else to tell sometimes, so we would say it over the children. He ain't no good. He make me sick. He's stupid. If he loved you, he would be here with you. When every man in here know that his relationship with his children is predicated on his relationship with their mother, and if they are not getting along with us, they are not going to spend any time with the children. That's just how that is. And I talk to brothers around this country, and I have testimonies and tons of letters from brothers who write and tell me that my book made them to decide to try to be a man again and try to have a woman. Now, if you think that's not an important work, I got black men who write me and say, you have made me decide not to have another white woman. I'm going to try to get back with the sisters and try them one more time. See, you know, nobody is going to give us this information. They have us standing around sometime and pointing at the brothers and saying, yeah, that's them over there, they ain't no good, they doing this and that and the other, and it's all negative. And they have us thinking that the black man is going to die and we going to live on. But that's not how it's going to go. There is still one monolith in the black community, and that's that it still takes a man and a woman to make a baby. So if the black man dies, we all die. And I don't want to die. I want to live. I want my children and my grandchildren and whatever else is coming after Shahrazad, I want that to live. But we are not on the path of life. We're on the path of destruction. You know, learning how to get along has to be taught by force. Slavery was taught by force. We didn't volunteer for that. They made us do that. They forced us to do that. And that's how we're going to have to learn how to reunify. It's going to have to be done by force. We're going to have to make ourselves try to deal with each other. Yeah, and that's very difficult, and it certainly takes a great deal of self-control and love for your nation at large. It's the greatest form of unselfishness. Now, I don't go around advocating that people that hate each other stay together. That's not what I'm saying. That's different. We can't solve a problem or get to a solution about a problem that we refuse to acknowledge that we have. We don't have to be ashamed that we have a problem. We don't have to be ashamed to know that it is related to slavery, because all of our problems are related to slavery. And I know that that seems to be some old hat issue, and everybody want me to stop talking about that. Nobody would tell the Japanese woman to forget about the fact that during World War II, the white man interned her family, took all of their personal possessions. Nobody would tell her to forget about that. Nobody would tell the Indian woman, forget about the fact that the white man came over here and took your country and put you and your babies out on the reservation. And nobody would dare to tell the Jewish woman to forget about the Holocaust, so why I got to forget about slavery? See, the Japanese and the Indian and the Jewish woman got behind their men, and they had some very terrible histories also. But because they got behind their men and supported them and worked with them, those people are successful today. They own property, they have businesses, they got great land here and abroad. You know, they have stocks, bonds, whatever America has to offer, they own part of that. They are in a position to make decisions because they have some ownership. It's only been the black man and the black woman who didn't reunite after a terrible time. And so today we are splintered. We don't have very much. We practice envy and jealousy. You know, they taught us a lot of bad habits that we practice against each other. If we practice everything we practice against each other against the white man, they'd have been killed out of America. Most of that stuff we reserve for our own kind, and that's wrong. We have had that rumor that we are the backbone of the black nation because it has served to make us think we were better than the black man. We have walked around and wore that as some kind of a sacred garment. And our men have had to struggle up under the already preconceived notion that they wasn't no good. We have always heard that the black man leaves us. He walks out on us. He don't love his children. He won't take care of his family. He beat his women. He do a lot of horrible things. This book goes back to try to examine what are some of the possible contributing causes. What happened before he left? What happened? Something happened. The black man is just not bad by nature. The brothers love their children as much as any other man. Every man loves his baby. They keep wanting to tell us that our man don't even love his children. He's not a mother, though. He's a father. He's not going to have the same kind of connection to the cub that we have. We can't expect that. We keep wanting the man to act like a woman. He can't act like no woman. Praise be to Allah. I wrote the book so that the brothers would understand what's going on, because most of what we charge them with is that he can't, quote, handle us. He can't handle me. They haven't known what they were handling. They didn't have that information. The book is really a book that puts the black man on point, because it tells him what he has allowed to happen to his woman and his children. And he can never again say he didn't know what was going on, because I have told him. See, it's never been an issue about whether or not the book is true or not, brother. The issue has been that I was not supposed to tell. But that's the missing information. And I was willing to come out here and go through whatever was going to be required if it was going to reunite some of our people. If we can get 1 or 2 black families in every town to start functioning differently, to make a better man and a better woman, then this campaign is worth it. It's worth it for our entire nation. I didn't just donate money to Marvin Collins School because this is my hometown, or because I wanted to put it in my mother's name. But we must have our own black schools to educate our own children. We have to educate our own children. If it's in a closet, I would rather support them, to have my own kind, trying to teach my own kind, than sending them out there into the white people's school and let them tell them all kind of nonsense that they want to. It's a very serious situation. Let us take a look at what we as black women have produced while we were allegedly backboning the black nation. 1 in every 4 black males between the age of 20 and 29 is in prison, on parole, been arrested, or had some bump with the law. Over 50% of our prison population is black, male, growing, and female. We have more black men in prison than in college. 6 out of every 10 black men between the ages of 15 and 44 are unemployed, in jail, got some disease, homosexual, on drugs. 73% of all the black men in prison were raised by a single black woman in a home with no man. 80% of that 73% suffered child abuse in the home, victimized by the mother. 1/3 of our children drop out of school before they graduate. Over 60% of our households are headed by black women who are single, divorced, separated, or widowed. Yeah, we got a serious problem. And only God knows how many of our black babies we have killed through abortion. I don't think that's something I think that's something the black man will never understand, how we kill that life in our womb because we decide we don't feel like taking care of it. It's too much of a hassle. Or we change our mind about how we feel about the man. So we have been in a very, very powerful position. We can make heaven or hell for the man, and we can decide who's going to live and die. That is a great woman, I agree. But we are in a very prestigious position. We are the wives of the man who was the first man that God chose to be on the earth. That's a very great position. The most valued and the strongest man on the earth that everybody's trying to use for something. He's the most durable. He's the most persistent. He's the most determined. The black man is not wrong because he does not do what white America wants him to do. And he's not wrong because he don't do what we want him to do. We don't know everything to do ourselves. We're learning a lot of what we think that we're supposed to do through recommendation and chance. Passing information among each other. Sharing secrets that'll help us to trick him, to keep him confused. We do things in front of his face, and we have learned how to convince him that he didn't even see that happen. Just serious situations. This is the first platform black man has ever had to air his grievances about the black woman, because nobody would ever listen to him. They listen to us. And we have had many complaints. Many of them may be true, but they have complaints against us too. They've just been too cool to deal with it like that. And then God sent Sister Shahrazad and said, we're going to deal with it now. History can't be complete without dealing with it. We cannot let the history live and die and record that we were all right and they were all wrong, because that's just not the way it is. We are good people, but we are both going to be a good people. And I hear, women around the country tell me, say, well, you have insulted black womanhood, and now anybody from any foreign country or anybody who picks your book up is going to think that all black women are like that. That's impossible. Everything I list in the book is visual and audible. You can see it or you can hear it. So if you don't see it or hear it, it ain't there. But if you see it and hear it, which you will, it's present. So there's no danger that somebody's going to look at one of us and think we are doing the things that I describe in the book. Because you can see if somebody's doing that or not. That's not difficult to be able to read a person on that. The book certainly does not give the black man any rights over us in a certain kind of a way, because no man can begin to try to get us together until he look at himself in the book. See, we represent problem number 2. They already know who problem number 1 is. Now, I know that many of us have heard a lot about, allegedly, as I said, about how much money I'm supposed to be making. I have to mention that because that's what they mention in all of the newspapers around the country. It's the weirdest thing I ever heard of. One article in Emerge magazine, before I left, day before yesterday, I come out of Boston, I went back through Philadelphia, and somebody had faxed me a copy of an article out of Emerge magazine, and the magazine said that they were still getting letters about my book, but that they had decided not to print anything else about it because they had decided that my book had made enough money. So I called the editors up. I told my secretary, I said, get him on the telephone. So I asked him, I said, that was a very ridiculous and ignorant remark to make, brother, since you don't know what the book sells for or how many I've sold or any of that. I say, plus, why don't some of you black people get together and go tell IBM and Adidas and Nike and Reebok that they made enough money? Those are the people robbing our people. I said, go down there and tell Xerox they made enough money and see what they say. I have security. Mostly not because of black women. We ain't gonna do nothing but fuss. I have security because of black men. The book puts the black man on point. They get hysterical, they go into denial, they jump the seats, charge down the aisles. You'd be surprised. So it's not the black woman that this book is upset, because many of our black men don't want to take responsibility for their families. Many of them, not just because of financial reasons, many of them have accepted so much of the hype in the medias that they don't know what it would be like to be in charge. They got doubt. They have fear. They are afraid that they will fail. We are all afraid of failure. The major tool that was used against us during slavery was the implication of fear. We have to get past that fear. Our men have to stop being scared to say, yes, I'm the head of the house. They need to know that every woman wants to know her limitations with her man. Any woman that can do a man any kind of way and have her way with him and say anything she wants to him, she ain't gonna want him in a minute. We have to know what the black line is. I had did an interview the other day from a newspaper out of Baltimore. Anyway, so they had brought down the camera crew and stuff, and so they were trying to interview me. So, of course, they got on that favorite part of the book, that everybody deal with. And so he asked me, I ever been slapped in the mouth? So I told him, I say, well, this book is not an autobiography, first of all. I said, and secondly, I said, I don't get that far out of control. I say, since that's how it's described, it's very easy to keep that from happening. Just don't do that. So I said, I don't do that. I don't talk like that. I said, I can tell by his tone of voice when it's time to stop talking. Yeah. That's the most amazing thing. The amazing thing to me is how our people go around the country trying to pretend that we ain't fight. And that I made that up, you know. But as I said, this book demonstrates that we are not as different as we like to think that we are. So what I'm going to go over real brief right now is what the attributes are of the good black woman. Since she's not on television, we may not recognize her. Okay. Now, the good black woman has 7 attributes, and then I'm going to explain to you how to utilize those in your day-to-day life. The good black woman has self-discipline, courteousness, cheerfulness, self-respect, intelligence, cleanliness, and love. Now, we've heard that terminology. You know, it's like one of those where they tell you, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. What do that mean? You know, how can I make that functional in my day-to-day life to benefit me as a practice? It sounds like all theory. Where's the practicum? What do I do? The good black woman has self-discipline. That's self-control. Let me make that real for you, sisters. We can start with our mouth. The good black woman can control her mouth. She don't have to say everything that comes up. It's okay if he get the last word sometime. You know. She don't cuss in public. And she works on not cussing in private. She don't tear a man down with her mouth because they can't out-argue us. Can't nobody out-argue us. I have charged that we nag our men too much. We keep our men's head tied up so much with our petty grievances about our personal relationship that he don't have time to think and plan for our future. Because he got to deal with what's going to happen with us every day. You know, it's real odd. When the black man come home, he almost have to do a wind test or stick his toe in the door. He don't know what's waiting. He don't know who in there today. He know it's a possibility that there's some kind of new monster that he didn't even know about yesterday.
Now, this was such an argumentative debate. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone does not want to be called you don't know. Everyone is knowledgeable. But by the end of the day, we've realized that there's what we call a slave mentality. And this slave mentality is affecting people up to date. Slavery did not end when there was the French Revolution or when there was the abolition of slave trade. Slavery still continues, but now it's affecting the mind. Now I want us to have a deep critical analysis of this book, Are You Still a Slave? Shahrazad's Ali, Are You Still a Slave? Is a bold, controversial work that delves deeply into the racial and psychological issues that continue to affect black Americans and by extension Africans in the diaspora. This book by Shahrazad Ali is an apologetic critique of what Ali perceives as the ongoing psychological enslavement of black people, even in the post-civil rights era. Her direct and often provocative language, Dr. Ali argues that while the chains of physical slavery have been removed, mental and the emotional scars of centuries of enslavement still bind black Americans. The major theme in this book, Shahrazad Ali's Are You Still a Slave?, evolves around the concept of mental enslavement, how the remnants of slavery, colonialism, and systemic racism continue to shape black identity, behavior, and relationship, often leading to distorted sense of self-worth. We have inability to break free from the psychological bond that is held by the white supremacy. Now, first of all is the mental enslavement and the identity crisis. Black Americans, some of them might be suffering from this identity crisis and mental enslavement, according to Shahrazad Ali. Now, one of the core arguments in the book is that the liberation of black Americans, which is though legally achieved through abolition of slavery, was never fully realized on a psychological or emotional level. Ali believes that many Black Americans, especially those in urban centers, continue to live as though they are mentally enslaved, and they perpetuate behaviors and attitude that reflect internalized racism. Her critique targets several aspects of Black life: the structure of Black families, social behaviors, and the relationship between Black men and women, which she argues are all shaped by the invisible shackles of white supremacy. Dr. Ali paints a bleak picture on the condition of the Black community. She often argues that the absence of strong, traditional family structure and deep psychological scars from centuries of enslavement have led to a fractured and disoriented community of Blacks. She places much of the blame on the role of Black women in perpetuating this cycle. Many Black women have been indoctrinated by the society that seeks to divide them from their male Black counterparts, thereby weakening the social fabric of the community. Ali's assertion that Black women have been trained to be overly independent to the point of disrupting familial and community cohesion to be seen as a critique of both mainstream society and post-civil rights movement, where Black feminist dialogues began to gain prominence. The same Dr. Shahrazad Ali, she is against this feminism, and she's against the idea of divorce. Feminism tries to bring in the woman and kick out the man. That is what feminism is, women's empowerment. But to some extent, it kicks away the male figure. So Shahrazad Ali is trying to remind African Americans that it starts with the family. This enslavement starts with the family. Now the family, once it adopts things like feminism, things like I am a woman enough, I don't need a man, here is where the real problem starts. And this problem develops until it becomes big. It starts affecting Black adults. They were children, now they're adults. They are suffering because their family, which is the basic union, or rather the basic unit of the society, is broken. What is the impact of historical trauma on Black Americans? Shahrazad Ali draws attention to the deep-rooted psychological effects of slavery, which, according to her, continues to plague the Black community. Dr. Razad references the legacy of racial violence, dehumanization, and economic exploitation as forces that still inform the Black American lives today. Ali's argument about the trauma of slavery resonates with the contemporary scholars of racial trauma and post-traumatic slave syndrome, a concept that is wide and was widespread by Dr. Joy DeGray. I did a video about Dr. Joy DeGray and you guys loved it, where she talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome. The effects of slavery are being manifested today. It was never gone. It's still there. All these people are speaking the same thing but with different variations. But the message is still one. Dr. Ali suggests that the inherited trauma of slavery is passed down through generation, affecting the way Black Americans perceive themselves, their relationship, and their interactions with the society. Dr. Ali's work also criticizes the failure of the African American leadership class, particularly after their civil rights movement, to address the ongoing psychological issues that continue to undermine Black progress. Dr. Ali argues that there is a lack of effective leadership that is focused on mental and cultural liberation, which is as important as political and economic freedom. Ali's critique of Black American leaders often veers into questioning the effectiveness of Black cultural movements, suggesting that they have failed to fully address the need for Black people to understand and reclaim their African heritage and cultural identity. This is evident in her calls for a return to a more collective, community-focused approach to Black life, one that emphasizes self-sufficiency, unity, and a strength based on African cultural values. That is very profound, what Dr. Shahrazad Ali is speaking to us right now. Now, let's have a look at this, the African diaspora and the global Black identity. Me, as myself, as an African, as a Black person, my role and my identity, because even as an African, we can still lose our identity. It's deep. It's not only for Black Americans. For Black Americans, it's different though. It's deeper. It's It's way too much. We suffered colonialism, but they suffered slavery. All these, if there's a name I can give to what we suffer today, I'll call it post-traumatic colonialism syndrome. Yes. According to Dr. Ali, Black Americans cannot be separated from the broader context of the African diaspora. Dr. Ali insists that Black Americans must reconnect with their African roots in order to fully free themselves from the mental shackles of enslavement. This call to return to African cultural practices and values is rooted in her belief that the erasure of African identity during the transatlantic slave trade created a rupture in the collective consciousness of Black people. Ali suggests that reclaiming that lost identity is a key in healing from the legacy of slavery. Ali Shahrazad also critiqued the adoption of Western values and ideologies by Black Americans. She views these as a further evidence of mental enslavement. She argues that Black people, both in America and in Africa, need to reject European models of success and instead return to indigenous African systems of governance, spirituality, and community. For me, spirituality is where I draw the difference, is where I draw the line. But I believe the one and true God is Jesus Christ, the Son of the Most High. He is the one and true path. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through Jesus Christ. Those African spirituality do not help. But our values, I value our values. Our cultures, I value our cultures. But the spirituality is where I have a difference in. I personally. I don't know about you. While some people may view her ideas as utopian or even reactionary, they represent a radical rejection of Western hegemony and a call for return to cultural authenticity. Remember, Shahrazad also talked about Black women and gender relationships. Shahrazad's Ali on gender relationship, particularly her critique of Black women independence and their role within the family structure, have been met with significant criticism as well. Shahrazad says that Black women's growing independence, often framed in the context of feminist ideals, has led to the emasculation of Black men and the fracturing of the Black family unit. She stresses the importance of Black women adapting more traditional gender roles in order to restore balance and stability within the community. Critics of Dr. Shahrazad Ali argues that she fails to take into account the broader and social economic factors that have been historically pushed Black women into the workforce and the public sphere. Black women, after all, were not afforded the luxury of staying at home as homemakers during slavery, nor in the generation that followed. Economic necessity, rather than choice, has often dictated the roles that Black women have played in the family structures. Furthermore, contemporary Black women's struggles for independence and autonomy are deeply rooted in the resistance to centuries of oppression and marginalization, and they reflect broader movements for gender equality that aim to dismantle patriarchal structures. Basically, Shahrazad is against this Black women movement. I am me, I can do without a man. Feminism. Feminism, if every woman was to practice feminism from the day the first women appeared, we wouldn't have humans on this earth. Yes, I'm telling you the truth. Because people are now competing and competing. And this feminism has seen the destruction of many families. You know? Now, let's have a conclusion to all this. Shahrazad's Ali, Are You Still Alive book offers a provocative and a controversial perspective on the mental and social conditions of Black Americans. This book highlights the enduring psychological effects of slavery. She forces her readers to confront the deep wounds that still shape Black identity and behavior today. While her critique of Black culture, gender roles, and family structures have been seen as overly harsh and simplistic by some, her call for a reawakening of African cultural consciousness and a more holistic approach to Black liberation remains an important contribution to the discourse on race, identity, and healing. Ultimately, this book, Are You Still a Slave?, challenges Black Americans to question their internalized oppression and reimagine a future where psychological freedom and cultural reclamation are central to the liberation of the Black community. This was a video by Shahrazad Ali. Her book, Are You Still a Slave? And the Role of Women to Creating a Strong Black Community. Without women, no humans. Women are very, very important members of the society. Yes, but we need women to practice their traditional values and roles as given, as stipulated by the African Constitution, traditional African Constitution. This will create a solid, a strong background for the African community. This is true, and it has been supported by Shahrazad Ali, our beloved sister from the African diaspora. Thanks for watching. This is EFK Original Documentary. You may want to subscribe to the channel to help it grow. We shall surely appreciate. See you in the next one, where we shall also have deep, further critical analysis of matters affecting Black people. Give a super thanks if you may. Thank you so much.